wife. They are in Pennsylvania on this bus tour.
This is a piece of ephemera from the 2024 presidential campaign, where they're showing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz at a Sheetz, trying to pick up some Doritos.
There you go.
Politicians, they're just like us. Ignore the politics, ignore it. Look at the response.
I think it's
like a
Sheetz.
Wawa.
Yes,
Sheetz
I think it's
perhaps.
Sheetz because they're in
Sheetz.
Pittsburgh, or outside of Pittsburgh.
Because Kamala went to Sheetz, a chain popular in central Pennsylvania, and Wawa people love their chain in eastern Pennsylvania, the internet was split in two. Just lost the Wawa. Lose the Philly suburbs. What's Kamala's plan to avoid Sheetz Wawa war? This is a map of every Sheetz in the United States of America in blue, and every Wawa is in red. This is a turf war being waged between gas stations that make sandwiches? Look at how Philadelphia is this fortress of Wawa, and how Pittsburgh is a castle for the Sheetz empire, but they have no defenses against Wawa's Florida forces. This is war. But gas station food is a national issue that is incredibly polarizing.
But I can say with total confidence that Wawa is the best to my Delawarean heart.
I'm sorry, Wawa people. I haven't been able to try anything from there that I can remember.
I don't think anything can outcompete a Buc-ee's.
Virginia, Sheetz.
Wawa, hands down, is the best in the category. I mean, have you ever even heard of Hoagie Fest? Come on. It's Wawa Hoagie Fest, not Sheetz Hoagie Fest. That would suck.
As an Iowan, Casey's General Store's breakfast pizza, nothing else compares.
In a very Midwestern way, Quick Trip. Yeah, pretty good.
The chicken wings from 7-Eleven restored my faith in humanity.
I can tell you with the utmost certainty that Sheetz is garbage. Thank you.
How did this happen? I read multiple gas station books. I talked to a professor. Why Wawa, Walcott? Why Wawa?
I look at innovation strategy and management, usually how established companies try to innovate.
And I learned this is a story of technology and law, and one that you probably have completely backwards. I'm gonna start by having you squint. Do you see it? Right there. This was a gas station, a curbside pump. Gas stations started with curbside pumps like this, but that caused traffic jams and was slow, so real gas stations started to show up. But there weren't a lot of them. Old gas station maps like these let you plan a trip between stops, the same way you might plan for superchargers on an electric car trip today. They were mostly simple, like this. You were looking at 2 pumps, maybe a canopy, and a small interior with some service functions. Speed to build these gas stations was so key that there were plans to buy them prefab. The buildings could then just be painted in oil companies' trademark colors. Margins were always slim. This old picture shows how, just like today, money went to the product, taxes, agents, and then finally, the owner. People marketed the actual product, clean, powerful gasoline. While I found gas station barbecue ads as early as 1925, this was driven more by the size of the town than the typical business model. When gas stations added complexity, it came in the form of basics like restrooms and service. This was influenced by both technology and law. In 1925, they were already testing serve-yourself gas stations, where you were your own gas salesman. It worked like a vending machine. But people were, and I'm serious, they were very worried about a Zoolander situation. Look at this Indiana ban of self-service gas. They were worried about customers being careless smoking. Gas stations had a bona fide, serve yourself association to try to convince customers they wouldn't lose quality if they served their own gas. But for decades, it was an uphill battle, and most gas stations had attendants. If you had to have an attendant and pay them to do the job, this really affected your business model. Look at this old video of an Esso station. The attendant is filling up and washing, changing the oil, and performing other service tasks. Attendants could easily upsell. By the way, I noticed when I was topping off your tank that you needed an entirely new engine. Is that something I could help you with today? The gas to service pipeline was the thing. maybe with some nice restrooms. But, and here's the twist, the story of that delicious gas station food we have today, it is not really a story about gas stations.
A supermarket is like many little markets or departments, all brought together into one big building.
This is gonna seem like a huge left turn, but you really need it to understand this map.
Many things go on behind the scenes of a supermarket.
Big supermarkets were starting to become a thing anywhere from 1925 to 1950, and they changed how food was sold. But they also created this gap in the space of the general stores and small markets that they replaced. Basically, if you could cut out the butcher and the bakery and all this stuff that brought people into the grocery, you could save a lot of money, save a lot of space, but you still needed something to draw people into the store. Enter ice, specifically Southland Ice. This kind of started a bit backwards. You're gonna recognize this company, but they started off selling ice, and then people started buying other stuff while they were picking up their ice. And that's how the convenience store model was kind of born. You might know Southland Ice Company by its eventual brand name, 7-Eleven, a place that, unlike a grocery store, was open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. By the way, I know this is just an ad, but are they really eating in the parking lot? It's kind of gross, right? I like how this Forbes article from 1969 describes their rise. The supermarket chain almost did in the corner grocer, but now he is back. They're open at night and provide quick checkout, though prices are higher than a supermarket. And there were a number of imitators. This epiphany, it started happening around the country. Let's focus on Wawa and Sheetz. Okay, so brief digression here. I read the Wawa and Sheetz books for this video, and I became kind of interested in their very weird company cultures. So if you want to deep dive on which one is weirder, Wawa or Sheetz, I've written an article about it that you can find in this week's newsletter. If you don't know, I have a free newsletter. I run it on Patreon, but it's totally free to sign up. And it's a way for me to give you this extra article about something that didn't quite fit in the video, but is still really interesting. And I think you'll find this one to be kind of funny. It's a way for me to let you know when I have a new video out, to give you this extra info, also my sources for the video. And if I ever bring more stuff to the Patreon, it's a way for me to let you know. Right now I have a reaction video where I do like a director's commentary on every episode, and I also chat with people a lot there. But yeah, so that's what this week's is about, and I think you'll find it pretty interesting, even if you don't have goose pride. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, then read the article. Okay, thanks. Wawa started off as a dairy in Wawa, Pennsylvania. This is just a Pennsylvania dairy farm. I found an old article about a magic groundhog at Wawa Dairy Farms. That is how much of a farm it is. They had access to the magic groundhogs of Pennsylvania. But the dairy business started to consolidate as the 20th century went on, and home delivery, the milkman, threatened their business. This photo makes me kind of uncomfortable, so let's switch to another milkman photo. Thank you. So in 1964, enter the Wawa food market. Within just 5 years, they were at 53 stores. The same thing happened with Sheetz in Altoona, which also started as a dairy, and then it became a convenience store. Just like the ice for 7-Eleven, dairy brought people in, and then other stuff sold too. This was a pattern for many of the most famous gas station food spots in the United States today. Buc-ee's was the outlier. They started after all these other stores had started selling gas. This chart shows the massive growth in convenience stores from 1967 to 1997. Why did it happen? Again, we'll focus on Pennsylvania, but these trends, they were national. Groceries started selling 7 days a week, so the convenience store advantage, it was fading. But there was also even more pressure on the gas station model. Customers were now allowed to self-serve in many states. So the service model, it kind of collapsed, and pay at the pump eventually became common too, making it less necessary to go inside the station. So you really had to draw people in. I just really loved your paper because it captures this drama in a way that I just wouldn't have seen otherwise.
I was looking for a great case, an unexpected case, from a brand that people might recognize, but that they don't know about this case, where business design really saved the day.
So grocery stores became more convenient, but gas stations, they became less gassy. Like the service automotive element was suddenly a lot less important, and they needed ways to drive people into the store.
The gas station networks added convenience stores because there was such vanishingly small margin in selling gasoline, and they wanted to increase their margins by selling CPG, selling cigarettes, selling beer, whatever that somebody would pick up, on the fly.
So during the 70s, Sheetz and many other convenience stores added gas stations to their list of services. By Sheetz Store 204, this one in Murraysville, Pennsylvania, massive 16 pump stations had become common. And if you think about it, this makes a ton of sense. More pumps equals more people who are stopping in to get the real Sheetz services, those convenience store goods. The same happened for Wawa, albeit a bit later. Wawa tried adding gas in the 1980s, but it didn't really work for a bunch of reasons. But in the 90s, they had a crisis of conscience and had to try again.
When they tacked on the gasoline the first time, it messed the whole system up. And they didn't realize they were designing a completely new business. Relaunched, was a huge success for the company, radically increased their revenues, and they really kind of did gasoline in a different way. So I'll give you one example that they did differently. They said, we're gonna have more real estate. When we put gasoline in, we're gonna make sure we have a bigger footprint. Second, we wanna make sure that when you drive by, it doesn't look like a gas station that happens to have convenience. It's gonna look like a Wawa.
What I love is that we actually have some proof of this pivot to food happening because of changing gas station laws. I found this paper, The Impact of Self-Service Bans in the Retail Gasoline Market. It's kind of old, but it shows the impact. At the time, both New Jersey and Oregon had kept the self-serve ban. Since then, Oregon has taken it away. This table is key. It shows 1972 to 1992. The number of gas stations goes way down, a trend that continues. The percent of stations selling food, way up. And this is really key. In New Jersey, a gasoline attendant state, 20% of gas stations sold food, while in neighboring Pennsylvania, a self-serve state, it was double that. On the West Coast, 44% in Oregon sold food, with California, Idaho, and Washington around 20% higher. These gaps are kind of proof that the death of attendant gas resulted in an increase in food sales at those stations. And this is even why these stations all have such defined turf. Here, the product is the gasoline, maybe the service. Here, the product is the convenience store. The canopies, the free air, the ATMs without fees, the bathrooms, and even the gas. They're just there to get you in the door. Okay, so why bother making a video about gas stations? I mean, listen, I was interested in why people care so much about gas stations all of a sudden. And along the way, I learned that I had it completely backwards. These are convenience stores with gas stations stapled on. I think this matters for two reasons. I read all these books, and it really shows how company culture shapes success. After all, gas stations have tried a little to become more like convenience stores. There's this chain called Hunt Brothers Pizza that runs inside of gas stations. But let's be honest, none of these were the ones that you mentioned in the comments or in your videos. They don't inspire the same level of passion because they don't have the same level of quality. It took these convenience-focused hustlers to adapt. And that's why I think they'll happily adapt to however electric vehicles change the market. These are chains known for their agility and service, not their fuel. And if you'll indulge me, I'll get a bit misty here. This is a story that you cannot understand without history.
And my guess is if she said a Sheetz, she will go to a Wawa later.
She must.
Whether it's the gas station in your area or the best one. Okay, so that's it for this one. I obviously tipped my hand at the end there, but I want to know your opinion about this video and about your favorite, gas station food, of course, or convenience store food, as I suppose I can reveal now. I also wanted to barge in, though, to say thank you. Thank you to Rob Wolcott for talking to me. His case study is linked in the description. It was really interesting. There was a lot that I left out that you might like. He also has a couple of books about business theory that you can check out, too. And he was kind enough to set me up with why Wawa Wolcott, why Wawa. I asked him if I could do that, and he said it was okay. So yeah, it was fun talking to him. I also want to thank you for submitting your comments, for submitting your videos. I ended up, like, when I was closing the submission form, I ended up deleting some of the email addresses. So I wasn't able to thank everybody personally. So thank you from me now. There were a couple of you where the upload didn't actually go through. So I just don't want to hurt your feelings. Like that's why it got stuck at 0 kilobytes or whatever. So yeah, but anyway, thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for submitting, and I hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye.